الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد, sisters and brothers in Iman, Salamun Alaikum. Today is the 4th of Ramadan. We started the tafsir of one section of Surah Al-Kahf, dealing with the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Hazrat Khizr. Till last night, basically, we were still at the beginning of the journey, and we had reached to a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had asked Musa alayhi salam that there is someone who has at least a dimension of the knowledge that you don't have. So therefore you go and learn from him. And he was even told that the place of meeting is Majma al-Bahrain, the place where two waters or seas come together. And the sign was the fish, that wherever you lose your fish, that will be the location where you will see this learned person, and that is Khizr. Not mentioned in the Quran, but there were three important descriptions of him. One was that he is from Abdun min Ibadina. Number one, that Allah relates him to himself, that he is my servant. And the second thing was the rahmah that Allah has given to him. And the most important thing was that we have taught him ladunna ilma, means ilm ladunni, the knowledge which has been given to him. And so you know the story where eventually Musa and his companion Yusha bin Nun, who was his wasi, eventually they remembered that this is the location where we have to go, where there was a big rock where they had lost the fish. They went back, and this is where, after meeting him, after the greetings and everything, Musa alayhi salam asked him that, do you allow me to be with you so that I can learn from you? This is where we see that the answer which is coming now, Musa is the student, Khizr is the teacher. They have not yet started the process. This is the application. And Khizr says, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعِ مَعِي صَبْرًا. Surely you will not be able to bear with me patiently. وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. How can you bear patiently of the things that you have not comprehensive knowledge? So basically here, Khizr is saying to him, number one, your request is denied. You cannot be with me. He said, I want to be with you so that I can learn from the knowledge that Allah has given to you. And he gives the reason. He says, you will not be able to bear with me patiently. And then he further explains why I refuse to accept you in my company is because you don't know some of the dimensions of the things that I know, and you will not be able to accept my actions because you don't have that knowledge. And this is where, can we fix the one line is going down there, the experts at the back? Salawat padhna zara. एक बार और सलावत पढ़ दें प्लीज. So basically Khizr says, that you look at things from the legal perspective and you react accordingly. Whereas I might do things from inner dimension of things, that you don't know. So there is different in perspective. You are looking at the Shari'i dimension of things, and I am looking at the Batini dimensions of things. That you are not aware of that. And so when I do things, you will not be able to bear with that. And this is where we have to realize that, Musa alayhi salam, among the prophets, he is probably the first one who received the most comprehensive Sharia. No one before him. Of course, Islam came with a, if not equal, if not more than at least equal level of elaborateness there. So Musa alayhi salam is known as the Nabi of Sharia. And the way he gave importance in the Sharia of Musawi to life and property of a human being. This was very important. And Khizr is basically saying that is your perspective, that is your Shari'i dimension. And that will be your duty as a prophet who brought Sharia. You will not be able to contain yourself and just take my actions the way you see it, without knowing the inner dimensions. And it's important to understand that Khizr is saying you as a Nabi who has brought these teachings, you don't have a choice but to speak up when you see things which are apparently going against the Sharia laws. And so you will not be able to handle what I do, because there is another dimension to my reasons for doing things that you will not be able to have sabr in that case. And so it's important to realize that the sabr that Khizr is denying to Musa is not that sabr of a positive quality. It's not the sabr against something in a negative meaning. He is actually talking about him from a positive point of view, that you are the Nabi of Sharia. And your duty is that when you see something going against the Sharia, you will speak up. And this is where we have the difference, on our dimensions, our vision. And so you will not be able to bear with me. And this is where again, of course, Musa doesn't let it go. Somebody who needs knowledge, seeking knowledge, you don't just accept rejection at first go. You try again. And so he says, قَالَ سَتَجِدْنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ صَابِرًا وَلَا أَعْصِي لَكَ أَمْرًا. So now he's pleading again. He's saying, number one, inshallah you will find me sabir. And number two, I will not disobey you. Whatever you do, I'm not going to disobey you in anything. And so this is where basically we see that, now the teacher who rejected him initially now reconsiders his application. And it's interesting, two great people in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a teacher and a student. This is where the teacher now says, I accept you, but there is a condition. قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا. O Musa, there is one condition. You can follow me, be with me, but don't ask any questions. Maybe when I feel that I need to explain to you, I will start. You don't ask me why you did this, don't object there. And this is an important condition that the teacher is putting. So the permission is granted, and obviously Quran doesn't say it, but Musa alayhi salam, accepted the condition, and now he is allowed to be in the company of Hazrat Khizr. And this is where we come to realize that, then they start the journey, and there are three important events which take place. We can't deal with the events now. We'll inshallah start with the first one tomorrow, about the story of the boat, and then the young lad, and then the wall. But what I would like to take from this, just the dialogue between Musa alayhi salam and Khizr alayhi salam, as a teacher and a potential student. This is where we have to realize that, Islam gives great importance to this whole process and the relationship between the student and the teacher. The respect that a student should have towards the teacher. And this is something greatly emphasized in our books. Sheikh Khulaini in his Usul Kafi, when he compiles, as I said yesterday, this was the first of the 4 compilations of hadith among the Shias. Usul Kafi is the first one, and then 3 other followed. Second was from Saduq, and the third and fourth is from Sheikh Tusi. Sheikh Khulaini, in the way he arranged the ahadith, because now he gathered all the ahadith that he could from the narrators who had been compiling things from the days of the A'imma. And remember, Sheikh Khulaini lived during the Ghaibat Sughra. His entire life, from beginning to the end, is within that Ghaibat Sughra era. And when he compiled, then he started putting them according to subjects. So this was the first subject-wise collection of ahadith in the Shia world. And it's very interesting, the very first book that he has is Kitabul Aqli wal Jahl. The first section or chapter of the book Usul Kafi is dealing with Aql. And opposite of that would be Jahl. The second is actually Kitab Fadl al-Ilm, the importance of knowledge. Only then he comes to Kitab al-Hujjah, where he talks about Tawheed and then Nubuwwat and Imamat. So even the ordering of ahadith subject-wise by Sheikh Khulaini shows the Shia outlook as far as importance of aql and knowledge is concerned. And so if you look at the ahadith on the second section about the importance of knowledge, you will see there is a lot of emphasis not only given to seeking of the knowledge, but even the relationship between the teacher and the student. One of our ulama by the name of Sayyid Thanis actually has a book about this, and this was in the past. Unfortunately, some of these texts of the older days are no more being studied in the Hausa. One of the important books that studied in the very elementary stage was this book of Shahid Thani, dealing with this issue of adabul muallim wal mutaallim, how they should conduct themselves on both levels. And so I wanted to take this as a way of going to one section from Risalatul Huquq of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam Zainul Abidin actually left 2 written documents for us. One is Saif Sajjadiyya, which we know very well. And there is another smaller document known as Risalatul Huquq, the Charter of Rights, which consists of 50 huquq and rights within it. And there he talks about different kinds of rights that people have in a society, in a family setting, in the community, in a business area, in social relationships. And so it's something worth reading. There is a section about the rights of the teacher, and also another section about the rights of the student. We'll look at just one, the rights of the teacher, where Imam Zainul Abidin says, it is the right of your teacher upon you Is it frozen here? So what happened? It is the right of your teacher upon you, number 1, to respect him. Number 2, to respect the dignity of his audience. So it's not only that you respect the teacher, you also respect your colleagues. your class fellows, because of the teacher. Sometimes I'm really amazed when I see people sitting on the minbar, and instead of educating the audience, they actually use terms against the audience itself, which is not appropriate at all. The least that people like me sitting on the minbar should realize, anyone who comes here believes in Ahlul Bayt and believes in Imam Hussein. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So this is not only about the issue of the students, even teachers have to realize that they have to respect the audience. Number 3, to listen to him intently, facing towards the teacher. And number 3, help him to teach you knowledge which you cannot be without by, number 1, by reserving for him your intellect with a presence of mind. Be there not only physically, but also with your mind. Some people are here, but they are sleeping. So we have to be clear about it. It is the right of the teacher at least to have that presence of mind there. In Ramadan, okay, I can forgive that. That's okay. Towards the end, yes. Number 2, purity of heart. That the intention of going to somebody, asking questions, trying to learn, should be with sincerity. Not that, let me go and ask him something that I can use against him. Number 3, a clarity of vision. Your outlook and purpose should be very clear. And number 4, by abstaining from enjoyments and by having few desires. The more you are able to suppress your desires, especially in the process of fasting, the more ability you will have to absorb the knowledge. And then the Imam goes on. He says, you should know that you are his messenger. When you learn something from a teacher, remember that you are his messenger in whatever he teaches you to those people in ignorance who may come to you. So it is necessary for you to deliver his message, to impart the knowledge to them beautifully, and not to commit a breach of trust while conveying his message. So exactly whatever you heard, to the best of your ability, convey that. Don't put mircha and masala into it. Just let it be the way it was, without omitting things or adding things into it. And to fulfill your duty on his behalf when you have undertaken it. And at the end, in almost all the huquq that Imam has written, he ends by saying, and there is no power or strength but with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Means in order to fulfill these huquq and the rights that we have towards one another, we always need to seek the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another important message that we get from this story, where Musa alayhi salam is coming. Musa alayhi salam is an Ulul Azm prophet. He is Kalimullah. Just think about it. Out of 124,000 prophets, you have 5 at the top. This is indeed a very, out of them, of course, you have Anbiya and Mursaleen. Anbiya are second level, Mursaleen are above. Do you know the numbers there in the difference? Out of 124,000 Anbiya, how many are Mursaleen? 313. So out of those 313 who are at the top, you have 5 individuals who are supreme. And among them is Musa alayhi salam. So just think about his status. He is Ulul Azm prophet, and he is Kalimullah. Allah has talked to him, given him the Sharia, and just because of that response he gave to a question or the thought that he had, that maybe what Allah has given to me as far as knowledge is concerned, nobody else has this in dunya. And Allah says, Musa, there is somebody. Now, looking at his status, it would have been very easy, not difficult for us to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would order Khizr you go and be in the company of Musa. Is it possible or not? Because he's still, status-wise, he's up there, above Khizr. So it was very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say, Khizr, there is a need for you to go and visit Musa. But no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't do that. Jibreel comes down and says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding you, you go and find him. This is the location, this is the sign. You go and find him and seek whatever you can from him. And so it is the student who has to go to the teacher. The teacher doesn't have to go to the student. That is one principle that we learn from this story. Now, just move forward in history, and we come to the, and again, as I said, our Aimma have used this story in different areas, and they have related this story with themselves. One of the dimensions of linking this story to the Ahlul Bayt is that they say, we are Khizr, and the Ummah is Musa. We are the source of guidance. We have the knowledge. It is the Ummah which has to come to us. We don't have to go to the Ummah. And when we look at this issue, if you look at the whole issue of Khilafat, when Amir al-Mu'mineen was busy with the funeral, rites of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, heard about, some people going to Saqifa with this plan that they had, he came to Ali and he said, extend your hand to me. And Ali said, for what? So that I will do bay'at now on your hand and declare that you are the Khalifa. Because they have gone to Saqifa to do the same thing. If I preempt them, as an uncle of the Prophet, you will have your right. Amir al-Mu'mineen said no. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't want to set a precedence that whoever's bayat is done after one and the second, automatically it will legitimize that system of doing bayat. He said, who has a right? Rasulullah has been very clear about it. Whatever they are doing, let them do. But they know that the haqq belongs to me. I don't have to go to them. I don't have to go to Saqifa to get my right. It is their duty to come to me. And therefore, in one of the hadiths that we have, the Prophet actually addressing Amir al-Mu'minin, he says, Anta bimanzilatil Ka'ba. O Ali, your status is like the status of the Kaaba. Tu'ta wa la ta'ti. People go and visit the Kaaba. The Kaaba doesn't go and visit people. This is where we come to realize. And then he says, فَإِنْ جَاءَكَ هَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ مُسَلِّمُوهَا إِلَيْكَ فَاقْبَلْ مِنْهُمْ. If they come to you and hand over the Khilafat to you and the leadership, you will take it. وَإِنْ لَمْ يَأْتُوكَ فَلَا تَأْتِيهِمْ حَتَّى يَأْتُوكَ. But if they don't come to you, you don't go to them. And this is where we have to realize that when we talk about this status of, the teacher and the student in the story of Musa and Khizr, you look at that example and take it to the issue of Ali Muhammad and Ummat Muhammad. Ali Muhammad are Khizr and Ali Ummat Muhammad is Musa there in that example. They need to come to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen doesn't need to go to them. Salawat. We'll leave some quiz for tomorrow. We don't have that much time. Let me just extend one more thing. I had thought about it yesterday, didn't get time more about it. This relationship of teacher and student. I alluded to it briefly that, in the circle of ulama in the Shia world, and even among Sunnis to a great extent, respect is one thing. But it doesn't mean that the ustad, in our case, the teacher is ma'soom. Otherwise, the whole process of ijtihad, for example, will end. This process of research, looking at evidence again, or finding more, angles to the issue, and looking at the problem from a different dimension, coming to a new, view on that issue is not a bid'at. That is the nature of, using aql with wahi, or wahi with aql. And this is something which has to continue. Respect is one thing, but having disagreement with the opinion of the teacher, once they have reached to that level, where they have a right to give opinions, not just, elementary or a new student after 2 years says, "Oh, I think." Well, it's not your place to think. If you are not a mujtahid, you don't say "I think." You just convey the views of those who are on that level. And so I gave you the example of Sheikh Saduq and Sheikh Mufid yesterday. That, for example, on the issue of Sahib al-Nabi, Saduq is the teacher, Mufid is the student, but Sheikh Mufid strongly opposed the opinion of his teacher, Sheikh Saduq, where he believed, based on some hadith, that Rasulullah, Nauzubillah, had done sahw, a mistake in namaz. And here the reasons, as I said about it, don't want to go in details. I'll give you one example of our own time. I'm sure many of you have heard the name of Allama Tabatabai. Allama Tabatabai is one of the greatest scholars of the Shia world in this century. He's very well known for his Tafsir al-Mizan. He was also an expert in philosophy with his own views in that subject. One of his most beloved students is Shahid Murtaza Mutahiri. And the respect and the honor or izzat that Shahid Murtaza Mutahiri had for Allama Tabatabai was very great. I heard myself in his lectures when he talks about, he used to mention him, he would say, Ruhi lahul fida. Mutahiri, remembering his teacher, Tabatabai, who was alive, because Mutahiri was assassinated while Allama Tabatabai was still alive. So he used to say, may my life be sacrificed for my teacher. That was the level of respect. And he says quite a lot that I have really gained, quite a lot from him. But that doesn't mean that he blindly accepted everything that Allama Tabatabai said. There are some very, fundamental issues in philosophy where the student doesn't agree with the teacher. Especially when it comes to the, whether moral values are absolute or relative. Allama Tabatabai was inclined towards, relativity in that. And Shahid Murtaza Mutahiri believed in absoluteness of the moral values. And there was a major difference between the two. But it doesn't mean he didn't have, respect for his teacher. You look at Ayatollah Khoui, one of the most important teacher of ijtihad in this century. Means this lifespan that he had and the way he trained about 3 generations of mujtahideen. Majority of the maraj of our time are directly or indirectly his students, in Qom as well as in Najaf. And so if you look at him and look at his student, Shahid Baqir al-Sadr, that relationship of teacher and student is there. The respect was very great. To the extent that if you, for example, look at one of the important works of Shahid Baqir al-Sadr in Usul al-Fiqh, which is actually the methodology of ijtihad, 4 volumes, which is actually used as a textbook in the Hawza at the present time. Shahid Baqir al-Sadr, whenever he mentions from the beginning of the book, when he quotes the opinion of Ayatollah Khoui, he never names him. Nowhere he gives his name. He just says, قال سيدنا الأستاذ. My Sayyid, my master, the teacher said this. And everyone knows, whenever he says Sayyiduna al-Ustaz, is referring to Sayyid al-Khawi. The respect is there, but does it mean that he blindly accepts everything? No. He had his own opinions on issues. And so remember that disagreement is not equal to disrespect, provided it is done in a manner, scholarly manner, and it is maintained on that level. Even if you look at, for example, Sayyid al-Khawi, his opinion on moon sighting, where he believes one sighting, as long as there is sharing of the night almost globally, it is sufficient. His own student, Sayyid Sistani, has a great respect for him. But his opinion was different. He goes more by the scientific criteria. Wherever it's not possible for it to be cited by science, he says, doesn't matter you share night or not, it doesn't apply to you. So it's not disrespect, but there is disagreement on a ilmi level. Imam Khomeini, like majority of the mujtahideen, would say that when it comes to sighting of the moon, it has to be with naked eyes. Sayyid Khamenei has a different opinion. He says even if it's by telescopic sighting only, it is sufficient. It's not disrespect of the teacher here, it is actually disagreement on academic and scholarly level. And so we have to realize that this is a living tradition, and we should actually be proud of this process of ijtihad where the students can respectfully disagree with the opinions of their teachers. Let me end with the example of Tafsir al-Mizan, one of the greatest tafsir of the Shia world. But is it Wahy Munzal for us? No. When my late father in 80s was approached from an institution in Iran to translate Tafsir al-Mizan into English, of course they trusted his ability as far as Arabic and English is concerned, and the content and the subject. It's not only simple tafsir. Allama Tabatabai was a philosopher, and there is a lot of philosophical bent in the tafsir of the Al-Mizan. And my late father was able to translate 6 volumes of the 20 volumes, which is published in 12 volumes in English. But if you look at the translation, he has maintained honesty. He has translated exactly the way it is. But wherever he disagreed with the opinion or the conclusion of Allama Tabatabai, he has extensive footnotes there. But that disagreement doesn't mean he disrespects, otherwise he wouldn't be translating the tafsir in the first place. He considers it to be worthy, but there could be issues where one alim would have a disagreement with the conclusions of another alim. And this is a living tradition. So this was just a side, take from this relationship between teacher and student. Inshallah, we'll continue with the first story within that story tomorrow. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.